I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, mostly I just kind of want to catch up and thank you guys for your patience and other stuff, but I would like to also just touch on so many things that have happened. I haven't streamed in I think it's been about 3 weeks, and there's been a lot of news since then, and there's a lot of news happening today, but I just kind of be remiss if I didn't just, say a couple other things about what's been going on because people will ask. So, and I know I've been updating online, just posting things here or there, but I just thank you guys for all your kind words. For those of you who don't know what I'm alluding to, my mother passed away suddenly, and it's the hardest thing I will say my family's ever gone through. Her funeral was just a week ago, and it was a beautiful service. And I'm so grateful for friends and family and my audience and just so many people, And I appreciate everyone telling me, hey, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a break. Focus on yourself and stuff. Because I was you know, pretty set on maybe just jumping back into everything right off the bat, but I didn't know what might trigger me to just kind of start crying. And as I just started talking about all this, especially when everything was fresh. And then there's grief brain is a real thing as well, and so my thoughts weren't all I don't know, there and on target to be talking about a lot of really important stuff. So I took people's advice and was just take some time. So I decided to take some time. I'm so sorry for starting so late today. And I didn't even give a heads up on YouTube, but I see some of my YouTube crews here anyway. But I'm kind of trying out a new setup a little bit. So I was trying to get some stuff straight and everything. But thank you guys for being here. But before we jump into everything, I do want to encourage you guys to go blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on my website because it does cost to stream and run my site and all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. You guys can also check out my different books that are available on Amazon. Some of them, I guess these are some of them behind me. Decided to put up on the wall, which I'm not sure. I don't think these are straight, so I got to try to figure that out. I probably shouldn't have put them up by myself, but please check out some of my books on Amazon, and you guys can also check out different merch that's available at the store. Different mugs, I've got my black tea mug here today. You guys can check out. Let me move my fat fingers so you guys can see. It just says Black Tea News. It's got the little teacup logo. So trying to be careful because I do have something in it today to drink. So you guys can check out mugs and teas and the You Are Not That Special. You guys can get that at the store. Just to humble someone in your life. The My Money, My Business t-shirt. You guys can check that out. For the Canadians out there, I made this when they had the whole trucker revolt. When the tyrannical government was trying to keep people from living life. And I also got this cool I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt, which people really like that one. So you guys can check that out. And other ones that we have available at blacktnews.com. Thank you guys for your comments. I already see your comments coming in. When will I have a teacup and a saucer? I have no idea how to do that. I've looked it up a little bit, but and I kind of don't know what the design and stuff will be with the logo. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I have not forgotten that. I don't know if you're the same person who's requested the teacup, but that's not the first time I've been asked about actually getting a teacup. So that's something I'm still like looking up. And if you know, you guys, you can please send me like a message or something on a Facebook or tweet at me or something, and we'll try to get this teacup situation. The people, um, same person. The people want a teacup. I will try to figure out this teacup situation. I will try. Will very much try to get the teacup situation figured out. So, thank you for asking. My sister said that's a smart idea. So, yeah, thank you for your condolences. Um, I already wrote an essay basically on my website about when we found out my mom passed, and which I also wrote that the Lord tried to, I don't know if I want to say a straight up warning, but uh, prepared us in a way for it, even though we like totally did not expect it. Because there was a sermon that the Lord was just putting on my heart for some weeks, and I knew I had to like deliver it to the whole church because we have a Bible study, a weekly Bible study, where there's more opportunity to speak if if I wanted to speak earlier. And I was just kind of waiting to be asked. And my sister asked me, "Hey, will you?" Actually, she said, "The favor of God's on your life." This was the day, the night that we had the early premiere of "Am I Racist?" And I met Ben from the movie and did the interview. If you haven't watched that, please go watch that interview. But she's like, "The favor of God is on your life, so go ahead and will you preach, on Friday?" And so I anticipated people are expecting me to like deliver like a barn burner kind of sermon, like really uplifting and stuff. And on my heart, God was just dealing with me about something else. And so um when I was preparing to preach, and I was really sick that day because that was the first day I basically took off. That Thursday was the last day that I have been live. The next day I was sick. And then that Monday my mom passed. But I was really sick, so I tried to sleep it off so I could at least preach that night. And I was still sick when I was preaching. But my sister called me out before I started preaching, and she said, "Church, we really need I feel like we really, really, really need to receive whatever Christina has to say on today. It's really important." And how she was talking, again, it kind of seemed like, I don't know, everybody was gearing up for me to preach, I don't know, blessings falling from the sky or anything. I don't know. That was just kind of the vibe that I was getting, and I'm just like, "That's not what the Lord's dealing with me about." And so I went to the back and I told my younger sister, I'm like, "My sermon is on suffering." And her eyes got really big. And so I preached and I taught that the idea that Christians have about like escapism, where you're not supposed to go through anything, is not accurate. Not go through anything, but uh when God spoke to Ananias about the apostle Paul, he said, "I'm going to show him like that I've called him to suffer for my sake, for my name." And sometimes you just have to go through hard things, and we're not supposed to, this idea that God will never put too much on you than you can bear, than you can carry, isn't true. You're supposed to cast your cares upon God, and you're also supposed to you know, let other people bear your burdens as well. The church is supposed to bear each other's burdens. That's what we're actually called to do. So, that's what I preached. I preached that God is, close to the brokenhearted and the crushed in spirit. I talked about how, Moses was fighting a battle and he needed Aaron and others to lift up his arms so they could win the battle. And it's very much something, life is very much something we're not supposed to go through alone, and we're going to suffer and go through hard things, but we are supposed to, especially as a body, a church body, but if you want to think of it as a family and friends, just community, etc., you're supposed to go through things together and help people grieve together, mourn together, uplift people through hard times, whether it's financial or tragedy, and so on. You're supposed to go through things together. And so everybody really enjoyed my sermon. And we had a very normal, Saturday the next day, and a very normal Sunday. The only thing that like really, really particularly stuck out to me was just how nice my mom looked. And she always looks nice. She loves, she loved her shoes, and she'd wear these long ponytails, and she'd always be matching with her purses, and she had so many purses and so many shoes. And my sister would take videos of her after church in her outfits, though she never really liked taking pictures and all that stuff. We had to like get her to do that more. I'm not a big picture person either, which I need to change that, I suppose. And but she just was wearing this pink Calvin Klein dress, and her sleeves were like these, I don't know, like tulip kind of petals, and she looked really so nice. And you know, try not to cry, but I think I'm pretty sure maybe I said goodbye to her, and as we left out that day. But we left the church, and the next thing I knew, the next morning, my sister came in the room and said my mom was unresponsive, and the paramedics were there. In hindsight, we know that she had already passed by then, but we were praying and hoping, that she'd be resuscitated and all that stuff. But she was already gone, and then after it's like, well, she's gone in heaven, and is it mean? Is it bad to even want her to come back? Because why would anyone want to leave heaven? So, um, but when I talk to people about me preaching that sermon, they're like, "Was that hard to do?" I'm like, "No, besides me being sick, that was hard because I didn't feel good, but I didn't know that that sermon was going to specifically apply to me in like 3 days. The Lord didn't say, 'Hey, I need you to preach this because you're about to face a tremendous tragedy of your own,' and that would have been really hard just anticipating that. So we had a preparation for it, but other than that, or my mom, she exercised every night. She watched what she ate. She was diligent about that. Um, and from what we knew, she wasn't sick at all. So it was very, very sudden, very tragic, and just really took us by surprise. So I have to say though, people have been so kind. And I'm sorry to like, I mean, I guess you're here, you guys listen to me, and I guess if you didn't want to listen, you'd be gone. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to express some thoughts. Um, I'll get to some news, but tonight we have a debate, by the way, with JD Vance and Tim Walz, and I will be tweeting about that as live as it's happening. But I just have to say, people were so kind, and not just you guys offering your condolences when I made the different posts, different senators and so on issuing condolences. We got one. I don't have a copy of it. I guess it's at my mom's house, but well, my dad's house. Tim Scott, Byron Donalds. There was another one. There was another Wesley Hunt, I think it's his name. And of course, we got one from Donald Trump. Sent one, and my sister Gina, she read all at the funeral. She read all of the condolence letters, and at the end, she got to Trump. Now we have family who do not like Trump, and and there was definitely like an aunt or so who like scoffed, but my one relative was like in the audience and was just like, "Oh my gosh, this one's from Donald Trump!" Like they were so excited to get that from Trump, and you know, it was really cool, for sure. We got flowers and cards from all over. There are people who flew out because my sister who works for the Trump campaign, she had friends who flew out to see her. Like Gianno Caldwell, he's on Fox News. He's a good friend of hers, so he flew out. The president of the Black Conservative Federation, Deontay, he flew out, and did other things as well for the family. So I appreciate that. The PAC that I work with, reached out, did stuff for the family. Other like ministers and folks did stuff for the family. I've the when we are trying to figure out the location for the funeral, because we were going to ask a friend of ours. It was a pretty big church, but it was going to be far from the funeral home and far from where we are going to bury my mom, and it just wasn't working out logistically. But we were thinking about it, talking about it. I'm like, it's not making any sense at all. And I'm like, we either have to figure out a different location for where we're going to bury her, or a different location for where we're going to have the funeral. And we're like thinking about, who do we know who's going to have a big enough church? And we were just racking our brain a little bit, and we didn't know, especially getting it together on such short notice, and how much would need to be paid, and so on. And my mom had a policy, but it was a really small policy, because her mom lived to 102, so we didn't expect to lose her so fast. And so she said, I got enough to bury me, and true to her word, so that was what she had, enough to bury her. So so we were trying to figure out costs and other stuff. And in the midst of us coming home from a funeral home, I got a text message from a good friend who I met within politics. And she said, I'm so sorry. I saw the news on Facebook, and I feel like, and she's been to our church a few times, but she said, I feel like so many people would want to honor your mom. And if you would like, I can set you up with my church. And her church had more than enough room. And we didn't, have to pay anything. And so it was just so kind. The kindness of everyone is just like so overwhelming. The kindness of, and goodness of God, despite, going through the tragedies, still having God provide and move on people, and people having compassion for us in our time of need and mourning, meant so much. So that was wonderful. And a friend of ours helped out with like getting um the venue. And I don't think they came down on the cost or anything, but there was people who, just gave. And just the Lord just provided, people provided. And it made a very hard time very I guess tolerable. Like, what do you do? Everyone, so many people are like, I lost my mom, I lost my dad. It did you never stop missing them, you never stop grieving them. And it's kind of hard to think about missing her the rest of my life. But um I just want to say, everybody just made a hard time so much better. So that what I preached that day about people bearing each other's burdens, people took that and they ran with it. So just thank you to everyone. Just thank you to everyone. So I do not have waterproof mascara on, and the kind I have kind of burns sometimes, so I'm really trying not to like cry too much. So anyway, thank you again. Thank you all for your patience and advising me to take some time. My younger sister, she usually streams her art on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but she was like, I'm not ready for people to ask questions and all that stuff and respond to people. And I'm like, people were going to ask questions anyway and say, I'm sorry and so on in a lot, so you're just going to have to jump back on the horse eventually. So I think she's going to go ahead and try it on Thursday. So yeah, I just had to get back in the swing of things. So I thought today would be the day. So, where we already at, I'm already talked for about 20 minutes. So we haven't talked to the news yet, but again, thank you. Thank you so much to just everybody, just everybody. If I could just give some advice throughout all this, a couple practical things, and then some really like important things to dealing with politics, but the just practical things. Make sure people around you have policies and they're well stacked, I guess, because you never know when you're going to lose somebody. Make sure that you document life. My mom, she wasn't a big picture taker. She got better with it when she had grandkids, because she wanted to take pictures with them. And I thank my sister Katrina, who's in the chat, for making videos of my mom and her outfits and stuff, and taking pictures and stuff in her outfits on Sundays, because we have, a bit more documentation. There's a video, I think I'm gonna post it if you guys are interested anyway, but a few years ago, I actually interviewed my mom at church, and it was on my birthday, and somehow my younger sister convinced my mom to do an interview because she doesn't like to speak. She's a very quiet first lady. She doesn't like to sit on the pulpit. She doesn't sing or anything. The best you can do is basically get her to sit on second row and, like, play her tambourine or something, but she was never showy. That's not the kind of woman she was. So, but we did an interview with her. So I was watching it the other day. I thought it might be, good to post it. But make sure that you just document life with your parents, with your siblings, with your grandkids. Just, make sure that you take time to make memories. Um, I was so glad, for my sister's birthday. We went to Frankenmuth, and my mom said she always wanted to go to Bronner's and stuff, and she had never gone. And we've been in Michigan our whole lives, but she had just never gone. So I think I had gone. No, I gone maybe to Bronner's maybe twice, but I had been up there a few times because there's a book conference I went to, and the first time I went with my friends, and so I planned to take her. I didn't want to take her during winter, but I did plan to take her, and so Katrina wanted to go up there for her birthday because we couldn't like do an elaborate trip, so we just decided to go. That was kind of a trip, so we stayed at the Bavarian Inn and we went to Bronner's and stuff. So I was glad to be able to take her to do something she wanted to do, but we took other trips, like we went to Vegas before for Katrina's birthday and stuff, and we like to go to the theater. She loved going to the movie theaters, but like we actually went to go see like Broadway plays and other things like that. So make sure you make memories. Things are really tough. People can barely buy things. And everybody's going through, and I'm not excluding that or anything, but when you look back, you're going to say, hey, I'm glad that I did this thing. I'm glad that I did this thing. I'm glad that we have this memory that you can look back on. So don't let life just like, pass you by. Um, there's other things I could say. Maybe I'll make a post or something about it later, more formal video. But let me get to this. I really, really want to say this, because I have seen some videos about someone crying about how their parents were Trump supporters and they needed to cut off their family. And it's not new. Through the years, I've seen people make posts or just seen it like in real life, people saying that they have to cut off family because of politics. In 2016, I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, and after it was all said and done, I think it was at after the thank you rally where Trump came back to Michigan. The team I was with, we went to is it Fish Bones or something? Bone something. It's a restaurant. Um, we were just sitting down talking, and somebody was like, my, niece just hates like Trump and people associated with him and stuff, and so they were thinking about, since they didn't want anything to do with Trump supporters, then basically maybe they were going to take the stuff they're going to get them for Christmas that they made with the money they made doing Republican stuff, and like just donate it to charity if they don't want anything to do with them and their money and stuff. So Bonefish, thank you very much, that's the name of the restaurant. So we were just in awe talking about how crazy people were, and that was 2016, and people only got worse since then, especially with so many lies that people stacked up against Donald Trump with the very fine people and et cetera, Russia collusion and so on. So the world is just insane. But I have seen some people say like, if you vote for Harris, I'm done with you. But I mostly see people who are deranged and decide to break up their entire families because of Donald Trump, which always amazed me. I already said my sister works for the RNC, the Trump campaign and stuff. And she always thought it was crazy when people would decide to break up their families and their friends and so on. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these people who you don't like, who are on opposite political sides, they are friends. They hang out with each other. They, they go to parties with each other. You see Michelle Obama and George W. Bush holding hands, and she gives them candy, and they just smile, and you know, it's it's all very strange. So they'll be buddy buddy or whatever, and life will go on. They'll say the most awful things about each other, and then it's just business. Like nothing personal. It's just business. I guess that was a tagline of The Apprentice. But they'll hang out, make deals with each other. And there was an event that a mutual of ours had, and there was people from both sides there, and the rule was just like nobody talks shop, nobody talks politics, but they hang out. My sister had a friend in 2016 who worked in Ohio, and she worked for Hillary's team, and they were good friends. So while people who don't, you know, while people online will cry about their families and so on, and want to break up their families over politics, people who are actually in the thick of things, who get paid, who door knock, who actually have to do X, Y, and Z and have skin in the game as far as their livelihood about the outcome and stuff, they will still hang out with people from the other side of the aisle. And I'm not saying there's not deranged people who work in politics, but it doesn't make sense for people to get rid of their mom or their dad or want to divorce their spouse over who they vote for. Now, if your values are like totally different, that's one thing. But I think most people kind of want the same thing. They just have a skewed perception of how to achieve those goals, or to achieve, the most optimal success for those particular values. Like, is the best thing for like everybody wants good education for their kids, but is the best thing to do school choice, or is the best, which choice is a good option, but is it school choice, or is it to dump more money into the public school system and to have pre-K be paid for by the taxpayer and all that stuff? Like people have different perceptions of how to achieve the goals, and we should debate on how those things are done. But people are at each other's throats all the time, and it doesn't make any sense. But I brought this up because again, I saw videos of people saying like, I got to get rid of my family because they like Donald Trump. I had family that did decide to block, and I think this was like it was before 2020, to block our family and stuff over politics. And you guys know me, I don't say crazy stuff. I don't say crazy stuff. And even if it's like what someone might consider far right, it's like I have reasonable reasons. Like people are like, you're extreme on abortion. I'm not extreme on the abortion position at all, and I'm very rational in how I explain it. But someone might say it's extreme or whatever. But I'm just trying to use that example. But it's not crazy or whatever. I can stand my ground and debate it and stuff. So but they just didn't like Trump, had Trump derangement or whatever, and decided to like block all the family members. And then I was at my dad's house when this person called and offered condolences after my mom passed. And they came to the funeral and stuff, and I didn't say anything about it. That'd be a weird kind of thing to say anything about it. And I wasn't like mad. It was kind of like whatever when it happened. But I just, you don't forget about those things just because someone died, you know? You just don't forget about those things. So I just am warning people that it's not worth doing really stupid stuff and isolating your stuff from your family, from your friends, and so on. Because at the end of the day, blood is blood. And a lot of these politicians don't care that much about you. They care about money, and they care about votes, and they might care about you like as a species, you're part of the human species or whatever, but you know a lot of people, especially in politics, they use folks to gain power and to do what they will. They have their inner circle of folks, and then everybody else is just kind of cogs in a wheel. But people get so invested in who's gonna win, who's not gonna win. And they're willing to destroy relationships with people who they've known for years, perhaps their whole life, over who's going to be in office for 4 years, maybe 8 max. And it's insane. It's insane. It's insane. So, am I saying that people shouldn't have offered condolences or showed up? I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I wish the dumb stuff never had happened. I'm saying I wish the dumb stuff had never happened because again, it's not worth tarnishing those relationships over dumb political stuff. It's not. It's not. And I don't care how much you like a politician. It's just not. So, big piece of advice there. If there's someone that you've written off because of politics, I urge you to mend that relationship, especially if they're family. Again, but if it's something with values, like a big value difference or something, well, if it's you're dating someone and you have big value differences, then you probably shouldn't be together. But and if you're married, you should have had some of those things really figured out before you got married. And but if there are big value differences in your family, that's something you got to work out with, or at least maybe, I don't know, limit some time. But to cut people off and block people online and stuff, there's people who I'm family with, and I don't care to see their posts, so I don't follow them. But to announce to the world I'm blocking my family, because it's so silly. It's so silly. So don't ruin relationships over politics. Just don't. And the world keeps spinning. I know we say stuff, I don't say it, but plenty of people are like, this is the last election we'll ever have. And there'll be serious repercussions if like Kamala wins, don't get me wrong. But you know, after 2020, my dad went into the hospital the day after the election. He had COVID. And before anyone's like, he should have took the vaccine. This was again the day after the election in 2020. So that wasn't something that was pretty much available. And my dad is the kind of guy that one in 10,000 it's gonna affect, and he's the one. He's the one. So so we're kind of leery about what goes in him, but as far as medicine and so on. But he went into the hospital, and while people were doing Stop the Steal and other stuff, and I went to like an event or two, or still went to some stuff politically, but people were so engaged with that, and I was trying to keep my dad alive. And there's so many other things more important than politics and stuff. And I wish, we had a different result in 2020, don't get me wrong, but I don't want people to lose sight of what's really truly important. And one of the reasons why we fight so hard in politics is because we want to protect what's really truly important. We want to have, competent schools that aren't going to indoctrinate the kids that we love. We want to make sure that we have safe schools and safe neighborhoods, so we don't tragically lose the people that we care about to some kind of crime. We don't want our to lose the American dream. We want to be able to have a good economy so we can take care of the people we love and so on. So I understand politics is a vehicle of how we accomplish a lot of things and secure our liberties and privileges and so on. But don't be discouraged to the point where you give up on stuff. You just have to keep life is still going to keep lifing. It's going to still keep moving. And and that's how it was in 2020. It's like we have to keep moving forward and try to just work to get the best result that we can. And even if you can't governmentally accomplish that, you still have to find a way to somehow do that in your circle, in your community. So while I don't know, Michigan just got more awful, I suppose. in our circle, spiritually, and I would say church wise, there's just a lot of things that just got so much better, as far as our tight knit community. So people need to focus on some things at least that they can control, and if you prioritize those things in your life and other people do that, that circle, that good work that you do in that circle will expand and you'll see a more positive impact in your community. But it starts on the ground level. So again, just don't lose sight of what's important. So sorry if that was too much of a ramble. But anyway, let's chat a little bit about some things that have happened since I was gone. And I'm just gonna mention a few things. I'm not going in too deep of a detail, but the Janet Jackson thing, are you guys aware of that? So Janet Jackson was asked about Kamala Harris, and I don't even know why. I think it was just she's black, so you have to ask everybody black what they think about Kamala Harris, even if it has anything to do with anything. And so she made a comment about like, well, it was essentially kind of questioning like, is she black? I heard her dad is Irish and stuff. And so people were mad at Janet Jackson and coming for Janet Jackson. And someone in her crew like released a statement like apologizing, and that, but it wasn't authorized. So it was kind of like her doubling down on this. And then other people went down a rabbit hole with Janet Jackson and started pulling up files of California when they were doing different court cases coming against Michael Jackson with allegations of him, touching children and stuff. And in one of the videos, lo and behold, you had young Kamala Harris talking about the case and so on. So people are like, oh my gosh, maybe she has like a legitimate reason to not like her, versus Donald Trump, who maintained Michael Jackson's innocence and stuck up for him. And said, that he had been around, he had, been with, Don, and it just, he didn't believe Don that anything had happened and stuff. So he stuck up for him versus, Kamala, uh, uh and is part represents, I guess a system of corruption in the eyes of Janet Jackson. So that is so very fascinating. So to the people out there trying to cancel Janet Jackson, good luck of that happening, because people who love her and love the Jacksons and just kind of that culture, that iconic culture, are not about to just throw Janet Jackson over the bus for Kamala Harris, who has a new accent every time she sits down for an interview. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. I'm absolutely sorry, guys. Oh, I was sorry, not sorry, really. So I love that she didn't apologize, I guess. And the women on the view were just like, I don't know, just stunned about all this. But people don't have to like Kamala Harris. And I'm not aware of people really liking her for any credible reasons. And if the reason why people have to like her is because she's a woman, that's bull crap. Because I know for a fact if Joe Biden was still in the race and Nikki Haley was our nominee, you wouldn't see all these Democrats saying, oh, we need to support Nikki Haley because she's a woman. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And if Tim Scott was our nominee, you wouldn't see all these people saying, oh, we need to support Tim Scott because he's black. That's not how it works on the left. That's not how it works at all. They support the person of their persuasion, or whatever persuasion, whether it's a woman or a black man or a Latino woman or whatever, or I guess they'd probably say Latinx. They support them if they go along with that ideology. And that's fine if the ideology is the most important thing, but they pretend like those other identity markers are the most important thing and that they wouldn't throw it under the bus if, someone had a different ideology. But we see it all the time. It's remarkable how they'll treat someone like Tim Scott, from the past of like sharecroppers and so on. But they're the people who they put up. You have Obama, who who is biracial and doesn't have that heritage, the African American heritage, of like their ancestors being enslaved like in the United States, and neither does Kamala Harris have that history. So I think it's interesting that this is their second person who's that close to the presidency who doesn't have the connection really of being oppressed by well, by Democrats, I guess. Don't you guys find that interesting? But when you get somebody like Tim Scott or somebody, then they're, you know, they're the coon, they're the Uncle Tom, they're the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they got all these negative things to say while they want to play up and use, you know, all this racial history of that past, but they don't have anyone elevated who actually comes from that connection. I just think it's fascinating. I also find it fascinating, since Janet mentioned her dad and stuff, and people are looking into that and questioning a bunch of things. Um, and if anyone is curious, no, I didn't watch Candace Owens and the stuff that she talked about. I would just, you know, I'm not saying that that any investigations that she's doing into Kamala's actual race might be wrong. I would just advise you to research yourself and not hang on her every word. But I just think it's fascinating that he isn't talked about in the campaign. And you don't I went when I went to her website, I didn't see anything about her dad. I didn't see like any photos. I see ads about Kamala and her mom. And I know her mom like raised her parents divorced and she lived with her mom. But I just find it strange, and I don't know. I'm just curious if the motivation behind that is just the fact that they're estranged, or I don't know, maybe they don't. Donald Trump mentioned that her dad was a Marxist professor. He's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. That was actually a true thing he said at the debate. So I don't know if I don't know. Should, do they just don't want to draw more attention to him, or is that just a choice solely based on the fact that they are estranged? She grew up with her mom. I just wonder if there's more strategy behind it. You know, last thing I kind of heard about her dad was that he wasn't too fond of her bragging about smoking pot at the Breakfast Club. So, um, another thing that's going on, of course, we have the terrible storm, um, which it's crazy to me how much the Democrats get a pass, because I don't know how old you guys all are, but I recall when Hurricane Katrina happened, um, people were not happy with George W. Bush. They weren't happy with him flying over a plane, which this tweet here points out, you know, Bush was eviscerated by the press for his Air Force One flyby over New Orleans on day 3 after Hurricane Katrina hit. Here's Kamala Harris 3 days after Hurricane Helene, and she Trump ragged her. Now I don't know if Trump should be the one to rag her about these things, or if this is something that the internet should just ream her on. But nevertheless, Trump did point out the fact. He didn't point it out at first. He probably saw other people on the internet point it out, and he's like, "I'm going to mention this." Um, because she had said, "Oh, I talked to FEMA, and we're getting, you know, about the response and all this kind of different stuff." And I can't see what's all on those papers because it's kind of bright. Someone said like there were blank sheets of paper. I don't know if they're that dumb or whatever. So maybe we just can't see what's written. I think I could see something written on one of these pieces of paper, but we cannot see her headphones plugged into her phone. So that's strange, is it not? uh so it just looks like a staged photo and not something that's like authentic. Um because, you know, why wouldn't her phone be plugged in there? What are the headphones for? I don't know. Maybe she needs some AirPods or something. But yeah, the media reamed on Bush for doing the flyby, and Kamala and Joe Biden was like on the beach, and he had a response that was like, "Oh, why weren't you guys in Washington, you know, coordinating and commanding all this?" And he said, "I was on the phone for 2 hours." Now, if you haven't seen that, let me play that.
On a hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I command. It's called a telephone. And all my security people.
Is it not important for the country to see?
Okay, so, excuse me. If this was George W. Bush and they were asking questions about Hurricane Katrina, and he said, well, I was on the phone for 2 hours, and I was on the phone 2 hours the other day. What do you think would have happened? Like, Katrina was like a permanent scar that was on the Bush administration, which I thought it was unfair. But you had like Kanye in that era who got, they had that fundraiser thing. I don't know, maybe it was a telethon or something, and Kanye West got on there and said George W. Bush don't care about black people, and is it Mike Myers? The Austin Powers guy, what's his name? He like did a double take. And he just couldn't believe that he said it, and he kept going on. And I remember there's like a VH1 special that was people were talking about that moment. They're like, "Yep, someone need to say it. Kanye is right. Bush didn't care about black people." And yes, Mike Myers. Okay, thank you. It was just insane. The how people felt, what people were saying, and so on. So that's again, that permanently marked George W. Bush. My friend, This Is Savvy, pointed out when there was a hurricane in the midst of Obama's reelection against Mitt, and he was running against Mitt Romney. She said, I don't remember what Mitt Romney was doing that time, but Obama, he went to New Jersey and he did that whole like hug with Chris Christie, which I don't know how, popular that made Chris Christie, but it was a good look for Obama because he was like, some things are above politics. We're going to get this handled and figure it out. And that was something that was really impactful. So I think this hurricane being so devastating, the images are just insane. Some Savvy said that she thought this in some respects this is worse than Katrina, and in areas just pummeled where they didn't expect to get pummeled like this. And to say I was on the phone for 2 hours in Kamala's staged photo with her earphones, it people are going to remember. And then he also said a comment about we've given them all that we have or all that they need even before without them asking, and people didn't take that very well either, because they're like, okay, but you just gave all this money to Ukraine. Like the Ukrainians, we never say we gave you more than enough, we gave you all that you need. We don't say that to the legal immigrants. They need something. There's always more money to give, always more that we can do. And as Americans, with our taxpayer dollars coming from the federal government and state and so on, they keep dishing out money. But, with the people of Maui, that tragedy that happened, they're like, well, where's more money? Where's more relief for us? And, people are wondering here, where's more money or more relief or more that can be done? And I just don't even if they like from this point on do everything that they need to do and everything that the people need them to do, I don't know how you just erase some of those initial sort of responses, knowing that Joe Biden was on the beach and has been on the beach. It keeps going to the beach. While the world is on fire, there's so much going on with the world right now. And he seems like a very not alive person. And Kamala Harris is busy doing her fundraisers and so on. I wonder why it is that they didn't just make him step aside and have her be the president a little while so she could be the incumbent. Could it be because they just, I don't know, was it his like price that he could pay, like, hey, you don't want to be forced out of office, therefore we'll let you like just kind of phase out with dignity, quote unquote. Was that part of the deal? Because if he's really not well enough to run for re-election and can't be the president after 2020, 2025 and onward, can he be president right now? I mean, he is, but it seems like he's really not up to the task, right? I don't think anyone really feels that way. I don't know who's like really running things day to day besides Joe Biden, but there's got to be more to it than that. More people pulling the levers of power than that. So was it just about Joe Biden being able to ride off into the sunset, finish out his term? Did they feel that she needed that time to fundraise and to do different campaign stuff? Because I would think that it would be better for her to be the president in some capacity for a little while, and then she's the incumbent, and people don't want to phase her out or whatever. And it's one thing to run and be defeated as a female president or a woman of color as president, but to be like pushed out and not reelected after you are the president, to me that it would seem like she'd have a better shot if she was incumbent. Now, it may perhaps they just want to keep trying to decouple Biden and Harris. I don't know how you do that because she's vice president. Some people are really doing their best to disassociate them, but it doesn't seem like it's working out because there's some polling that's not too great for her, apparently. And Alyssa Slotkin, she's running for Senate. She had said that she's not comfortable. Senate in Michigan, by the way, if that's not clear, but she says she's not comfortable right now where things are as far as Kamala Harris, with her internal polling, which is interesting because personally, it kind of, to me, I'm like, it's hard to imagine Trump winning in Michigan because we apparently like electing crazy women in our state because we have a full female like government as far as like governor, and lieutenant governor is a black guy, but our governor is Gretchen Whitmer. Our attorney general is Dana Nessel, who is a very crazy person, and then our secretary of state is Jocelyn Benson. And so we have women on that ticket, and we reelected those crazy women, and so we just got a thing for crazy women apparently. So if I would think if the people of Michigan can elect those crazy women twice, then they could easily elect Kamala Harris, but people want to put food on their table. And the unions are not with Kamala, and there were some did decide to go ahead and endorse, but some of the Teamsters and stuff tried to just hold their endorsement even though their members want Trump. Joe edged him out, but she got like heavily defeated in their like internal polling and stuff. So she's got problems. She's got issues for sure. So this storm stuff's not going to help. The fact that Israel is at war isn't going to help, like the Middle East, destabilize it. But I don't know, with Israel fights, they win very quickly and stuff. That'll restabilize, I'm sure. And but the US has been a not very good ally as of late. They're waffling, they're wringing their hands, their finger shaking at Israel. It's just prolonged things, and people are going to want someone better at the helm. All of this really hurts her. For sure. And you got the strikes going on. There was a let me see. There was a post from Katie Palovich that I had put on Facebook. You guys are really good with the shares as of late, by the way, on Facebook. You guys are really doing your thing. But she mentioned that we have the strike going on, that we got Iran, in Israel, we have the hurricane that just happened, and I think something else that she mentioned. And it's just too much for Kamala Harris. And I had just put in my comment, yeah, but at least Kamala Harris is from the middle class. Because that's her answer to everything. And people are making fun of her for it. That's the only thing that she's really got to say when she talks about economy. And it's so scripted again and again and again. I'm a child of the middle class. I'm a child of the middle class. It's always funny when politicians bring that up because I know they're trying to relate to somebody. That's not relatable to me. I grew up really poor. Not like destitute poor, but we lost our house before. And so we didn't live paycheck to paycheck. We lived faith by faith. So like, I'm a child of the middle class. I'm like, I don't know who you're trying to relate to because it ain't me, ma'am. It ain't me. It ain't me, ma'am. So just answer the question. I would like her to just answer the question. Would ask her a question like, "What is your economic plan?" I want you to just say it. I don't want a monologue about your neighbor who you saw as a second mother. I don't want the monologue, especially that I've heard a couple times now. It just comes off so fake. Like people don't need the monologue. We need someone who's gonna actually solve stuff. So Katie said, just today we have a dock strike not seen in 40 plus years that could cripple the economy. Uh, if I don't know what's going to happen with the strike, but buy local stuff for Christmas, y'all. If y'all ain't if y'all ain't already got that figured out, man. Katrina level devastation in a number of southern U.S. states, war raging in a stalemate between Russia and Ukraine, and hundreds of missiles launches from Iran. And again, but at least Kamala Harris, she is a child of middle class. She's at least still got that going for her, I guess. Or at least she claims that she has that going for her. At least she claims she's got that going for her. I'm trying to think about what are some other things. The GOP Oversight Committee confirmed that the CCP and Tim Walz have links. That was something that broke, but there's so much going on. I don't know how much. I'm sure it'll be mentioned tonight. Again, Tim Walz and is debating JD Vance tonight. Trying to see, going through my timeline. There was a big deal about an IVF vote. I think this happened pretty much. Was it about 3 weeks ago? It happened pretty early on my hiatus, but because I saw them gearing up for it, and I plan to talk about it actually, because we had Chuck Schumer who was basically going to try to call bluff with Republicans and Trump, and because Trump has been really pro IVF, he wants taxpayers to fund IVF, which I don't approve for many reasons, but beyond the ethical questions about IVF, it is very expensive. The rate of return, especially for the price, seems like not a justifiable use of taxpayer dollars anyway. And if the response to that is, well, babies are good, it's good to have babies, therefore we should pay for that. Well, if that's the logic, I don't see why we just don't have universal health care. And I'm not advocating that we should, but it's a good thing, therefore we should pay for it. The government should pay for it is not a thing that we should be pushing. Like if you're I don't know, if you're sick, is it not good that you are made well? If you are broken, is it not a good thing that you are mended? you know? So if we're going to argue that IVF should be paid for by taxpayers because it is just a good thing for people, I don't see how folks couldn't just argue that it would be good for them to be able to to have all their health care paid for because it is just good. So inexpensive. And IVF is, I can understand people wanting to have children, and compassion for people who can't have children, need help to have children. But it is still an elective thing. What about people who have cancer and they can't pay their medical bills or something? And not because they're poor, but just, I don't know, maybe there's a lot going on. For some reason, they don't qualify for stuff. So, it's just the logic is just isn't there. But the ethical issues, and by the way, a lot of people just conflate IVF with all sorts of fertility treatments and stuff. Like Tim Walz, his family didn't actually use IVF. Um, they directly like inseminated, I think. IVF is um they're taking the sperm and the eggs and stuff, and they're making the embryos, and then they're implanting the embryos. But most are destroyed. You have some that are like donated to science. People pick the good ones out of the bad ones, and so there's some eugenics kind of stuff there going on. There's just a lot of ethical questions, and then you get into surrogacy and stuff, and there's some ethical questions about the surrogacy industry, and people designing lives for their children without their parents and so on. So it's and you can say, well, that happens in adoption. The child already exists in adoption. You're like building a child to purposely rob them of a parent in some of these circumstances. And there's just a lot of ethical issues with it that I don't think a lot of people have thought too much on. But as far as Chuck Schumer and the Democrats and Republicans and their whole issues, or what they're trying to accomplish with IVF, Ted Cruz and another, I don't know if it was she's a congresswoman or a senator, tried to introduce some pro IVF legislation to protect IVF. And the Democrats are trying to pass some pro IVF stuff. What Ted Cruz was trying to do, and another Republican, the Republican pro IVF stuff was saying states cannot ban it. And if states ban it, we're going to mess with your federal funding. We're going to cut it off or whatever. And it doesn't say how the states regulate IVF. It just says you can't ban it. So I think that's kind of their happy medium there, because I'm sure Ted Cruz is smart enough to know why people view IVF as controversial. And when he was asked about IVF, the controversy revolving it, like, do you believe life starts at conception? He totally dodged that. So he understands what people find ethical issues with it. But from their perspective, they're like, we're not going to tell the states. We're not going to regulate what they do with it. They just can't ban it. Now, I don't appreciate that either, because what if, like, I don't know, they're like, okay, well, they're banning IVF, so now we're going to ban these federal dollars, and now you don't have them for your kid's school or for medicine or whatever. And it's like, I don't think that's justifiable. I don't think that's justifiable. And then people could take that logic and just apply with that with abortion. Like, okay, if you ban abortion, we're just going to not allow you to have federal funds, So I didn't like what Ted Cruz did. And I wrote about that at the time when they proposed that. Now, the Democrats, though, what they're proposing with IVF is they want to protect, like, different procedures and like how they would discard the embryos and how they decide to donate them and terminate and all this other kind of stuff. So they're basically, while the Republicans were like, well, you can't ban this, but we're not going to tell you how to regulate it. We're not writing all those rules or whatever. You just can't ban it. The Democrats are like, we're going to protect all these methods and all these different ways that people discard them or whatever. So they're basically saying you have a right to create and destroy your children. So, I didn't like either thing. The Democrats' proposal on the IVF was far worse than the Republican stuff. People were saying there are other kind of poison pills in it to kill the bill. And I didn't see a lot of things that people were referring to when I skimmed through it. Well, I didn't skim through. I read it and then I started skimming, but to try to find what they were talking about. But how they wrote it was just bad enough. So but the Democrats wanted to give the Republicans an opportunity to not accept what they wanted, so they could say, aha, they are trying to get rid of IVF. They're not sincere about trying to protect it. I think Donald Trump is pretty darn sincere about trying to protect IVF. Most people support it because they have this sympathy, like, no, it's good that people can have children, and many people know someone who tried to use IVF or whatever, and might know some children that are born because of the miracle of IVF and so on. So most people are pro IVF, but Donald Trump really became like, hey, we're going to protect IVF. We're going to protect IVF after the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that parents could sue an IVF clinic for a wrongful death of a minor because it was totally their fault that they allowed their eggs to be destroyed. And I have talked about this a lot, but I just hate that Republicans decided to just jump on the, oh, we got to protect the IVF industry. We got to do it real fast. Instead of just explaining what happened in the actual case. So we have to be really careful. Again, I already said there's ethical implications with this IVF stuff, and it makes me not really support it. But the route that they're going to protect it is just going to make it so that the preborn have less rights. And we think of this so backwards. Um, and we're really thinking about this as if the parents have the right to the child at any cost. And they, and how they have the child, and whether they're going to discard the child, as far as like IVF or abortion. It's all about what that parent wants in building life and death around their desires, rather than acknowledging that children are a gift from God, and that there's certain obligations that we have to our children. And it's just really backwards. So that was a big thing I was interested in to talk about. But of course I was on hiatus for reasons that you guys understand. Trying to see if there's anything I want to mention else before I let you guys go. I know I started late, and Trump started pushing Kamala Project 2025. I do want to talk about the event I went to the other day. For those of you who don't know, I talked to CNN, the Detroit News, and it's about kind of other journalists from like that particular journalist was from California. They were like a student journalist, and but the Detroit News ended up printing my words. I don't know if CNN did, so maybe I'll table that because that'll be kind of a longer conversation. But it was interesting. It was interesting, but at the same time, it was hard because in my mind they kept asking questions, and I'm just like, like more questions. Jeez, and I was still just mentally exhausted from just everything going on with my mom and stuff. But I answered all the questions fully for sure. But it was a nice event that my sister managed to pull off with other like Trump supporters and evangelicals and stuff. Kamala Harris has had some bad interviews. There was an Oprah one that happened that did her no favors. I think MSNBC sycophant, interviewed Kamala Harris, and she's let me show you this before I let you guys go, if you haven't seen this.
Expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share. And it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
So she just goes into these monologues and stuff. I know a lot of people go into monologues, but like the difference between her and like Mike Rogers is just so severe. Like I Mike Rogers was at the event I went to last week, and I watched him give an interview for about 30 minutes. And it was a little more than 30 minutes, I think. And he was just so flawless with his execution and, conversation and so on. And people do have like kind of extended answers explaining stuff, but she monologues to kind of get away from the point, I think. Because the question was like, well, what are you going to do if you have a divided government? How are you going to get this stuff done? Because there's a lot of stuff that you want to do, but you're not gonna be able to pay for. So you're gonna have to raise taxes, but if the Republicans don't want to do that, how are you going to accomplish that? And I don't know, she can't wrap her brain around having to figure that out. And she's like, no, this we, we have to do it with what, like rainbow magic? How are you going to just get them to do that? So it's so silly, it's so childish. You, of course, at some point, let's say you come in and it's a landslide or something, and it's the house, and you get the House and you have the Senate, and you could do whatever you want for like 2 years. It's only going to be 2 years because people eventually like, we want divided government. That seems to be what people usually want. So you're going to have to get over the fact that, and they could probably do a lot of damage, if they have 2 years of, full Democrat control. But at some point, the likelihood is that you will have to have some kind of divided government. So how are you going to work with people? That would have been a great moment to talk about partisanship and, etc. But you're just like, no, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to do it. That reminds me of when, she was on the debate stage with Joe Biden, and they asked about like her saying that, if they don't move within the first 100 days that on guns, and she's going to issue an executive order, and Joe Biden's like, you can't do that. Like, you can use executive orders, but not for something like that. And she just starts laughing and says, you say no, we can't, but I say yes, we can, Joe. And it's remarkable that he still picked her to be, the vice president, and here we are. But you can't just be like, nah, I'm gonna do it, and I don't care. I'm doing it my way. I don't care. We're just gonna, how? How? And like, so that's the main thing. Then there's all the other problematic stuff, like the rich. I'm not trying to punish your success, which Obama said that before, but they have to pay their fair share. How much is a fair share of what's doesn't belong to you? How much is a fair share of something that you didn't earn, that you feel entitled to take? What is a fair share? Because that's not making a lot of sense to me. And I don't really hear people really explain what that means. How much is a fair share of you taking something that doesn't belong to you, that you didn't make, that you have nothing to do with? How is that a fair share? Maybe one day Kamala Harris will explain it to us. Maybe someone. But I reckon that the answer will likely be that she comes from a middle class family. That's likely going to be the answer. My sister mentioned Diddy. Yeah, Diddy got arrested. So many people were talking about P. Diddy, and the white parties and so on. I'm not surprised. I mean, years ago, a friend of mine was dating someone who is like a songwriter for a very famous star. Very famous artist. So if I said their name, you would absolutely know who I was talking about. And he just spilled so much tea about how much of the industry revolves around people sleeping with each other for favors, particularly dudes. And it's like, if you don't do it yourself, you got to know somebody who's willing to do it. And I'm not surprised, like, about this kind of weird stuff. And so many people will go to these parties and so on. And so many people are so interconnected. Like, so many people knew about Weinstein, for example, and all the shady stuff that he was doing, and just kept the culture of like oppression and grossness going on. Of course, that kind of stuff was going on with Diddy. Of course, the amount of baby oil is very alarming, but I'm I'm not, yeah, the amount of baby oil is surprising just because the sheer volume of it. But um, I'm not surprised at the degeneracy. Not at all, not at all. And I don't know if anyone else is going to go down for any of this stuff. But you should always kind of look sideways at these celebrities, for sure, for sure. You know, people have been talking about this kind of crazy stuff going on for years. And by the way, there are crazy political parties where people do crazy stuff too. Especially I heard some stuff about people who did stuff back in the day, and there was the congressman who ended up getting voted out, but he was in the wheelchair. Um, he got in trouble because he claimed that there was someone who was a swinger asked him to come to a party or whatever, and people thought he was making stuff up. Nah, maybe he's making stuff up, but I just know there's just shady, creepy stuff that goes on everywhere. So, you know, if if you know someone, if you have a child or a friend or somebody who wants to be famous, whether it's politics or it's entertainment or whatever, you better make sure that they have a good head on their shoulders and that they're not going to be susceptible to peer pressure that may one day lead them to something that they will get blackmailed over. Because people do try to set you up so they can blackmail you into different things. So make good decisions and keep good company. Unfortunately, a lot of these industries of the company is just trash. But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Madison Cawthorn, that was his name. Thank you, my live fact checkers or helpers in the comments. Yeah, Madison Cawthorn. Um, I, he had to walk back or kind of apologize for some of the stuff that he was saying. I'm like, I believe it. I believe there's some of the stuff going on because I've heard too many things. I've heard too many things. I'm just scrolling through my timeline and like, there's another thing that happened. There's another thing that happened. Kamala Harris tried to use a woman who died from after complications from an abortion to say, that an abortion ban killed her. And these people are just the most gross, disgusting folks ever. I don't have all the words right now to convey about how much I dislike Kamala Harris. When I was at the event on last week that my sister threw with a bunch of evangelicals and stuff, and I haven't really been to a lot of Trump stuff or political stuff lately. And I haven't really, people have kind of known not to ask me too, because I've had issues with Trump and things that he's campaigning on. I'm very conservative and I don't like how far to the left he's gone, especially on issues like abortion and other stuff like that. So but this was a time where I could tell that, my sister asked me and it was like I need you to go kind of situation, whether it was just for moral support or whatever. And I was like, yeah, let me go. And everybody in the group like introduced themselves and said a little bit of something. And so when it got to me and I said, to be honest, I've had some issues as of late with Trump, and I prefer our old platform in 2016 compared to the new platform in 2024. And I don't like the new stance that we're taking on a lot of issues. But I said Kamala Harris was my least favorite person who ran it on the Democrat side in 2020. And I just went on and on about how I did not like her. But the main thing that I said, and the Detroit News printed some of this. I don't know. I didn't see with CNN story. I don't know if they use anything or not. But I did tell them this too. If you want to look at these candidates and what's actually relevant, look at how they're attacking each other. Kamala Harris primarily, and the Democrats are primarily attacking Donald Trump on the Project 2025 stuff. Now, you know, he didn't read those 900 pages. I didn't read those 900 pages. I'm really not trying to read those 900 pages. And most people who's talking about it didn't read the 900 pages. Probably didn't read any of it really. Okay. That's not Trump's agenda. Agenda 47 is his agenda. You can read that, or you can read the Republican platform. Project 2025, yes, there's been people who've been in his circle, whatever, associated with him, who was associated with that, but that is not his agenda, what he's pushing, etc. But that is the main thing that the Democrats are talking about and pushing and putting in ads and putting in, talking about on the radio, talking about it, you know, in mailers. It's Project 2025. So they are relying on a smear to stop Donald Trump. That's the focus of the Democrats. Trump, on the other hand, is focusing on the truth about Kamala Harris. He mentions how she wanted to ban fracking. That's what she said. She wanted to do mandatory gun buybacks. She said those things. She's talked about wanting to get rid of private healthcare insurance. That's something that she supported. You know, these are positions that she supported as a senator. And these are things that she talked about when she was running for the president. And so she could say, I made myself very clear in 2020, whatever the heck that means. What does it even mean? You never made it clear that you were suddenly pro fracking. So what does it even mean, Kamala? So anyway, he will tell the truth about her, but she has to lie on him. Now, she doesn't have to lie on him. I tell people all the time, I've told you guys all the time, that people who are actually going to support Trump and like Trump could make a better case on why you shouldn't vote for him than actual Democrats. Because most things that the Democrats believe and they cling on to are things that aren't even true. The very fine people hoax, the Russia collusion, even like the Central Park 5 stuff. Most people have never read that piece that he put out in the papers about that time. Which is why I typed it up and put it on my website. If you haven't seen that, please go to blacktnews.com and just read it for yourself. Knowing the context that those young men did confess to touching the jogger, and they did all this stuff that night too, right? Or at least they said that they did. So that's the context of Trump writing what he wrote, which was not like a string them up or something. It wasn't like that. It was, we need to restore law and order. Just stuff that vibes that he has basically now. Same guy throughout all the years. So they can't tell the truth about him. And most of the reasons why they don't like him aren't even like real, aren't even apparent. There's loads of things I could list of why I'm frustrated and why, you know, I'm not as fond as him this year as I was in like 2016 or 2020, you know, but I can't stand Kamala Harris. And the thing, I think one of the first things I said to the group was that Kamala Harris is the most insincere politician, a modern politician I think there is. Like, she just came off to me as the most insincere human being. And that's why she was my least favorite. And she continuously kept proving that, whether it was the going on the Breakfast Club and bragging about smoking, you know, the joints and stuff, while knowing that she had this history of like locking up folks over pot and so on, or announcing that she believed Christine Blasey Ford before she even got to hear her or Kavanaugh testify. And I never forgot that. Oh my gosh, I never forgot that. And then going around saying, you can't tell a woman what to do with her own body. And she keeps saying that, but I can't. I told one reporter, you know, maybe I mentioned this a couple times, but I talked about COVID and the unconstitutional OSHA mandates. And I think it was a student journalist was like, I didn't forget what she did, you know, her and Joe Biden, that they like were losing patience with you. This isn't about your freedom or your personal choice. So the only time you care about bodily autonomy is when you want to kill a baby. That's really shady. So I can't stand this woman. I can understand a Christian saying, I don't want to vote. I can't support Donald Trump. I don't want to vote for him. I absolutely 100% get that. What I don't understand is that same Christian saying, therefore, I'm going to support Kamala Harris. That's lunacy. You might as well leave it blank. You might as well leave it blank. because Kamala Harris is like the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst. The worst of the worst. So, and using a woman who died after complications from a abortion. Sepsis is a possible side effect when you take those pills, man. It says there, so there's a warning on the labels and stuff. It's just another, like, pro-life people say we don't like these drugs and stuff, but you should at least be having stuff administered by the doctor and be, the doctor should watch over you and other stuff like that. You should not just be able to get pills in the mail or pills at Walgreens or something like that. But the pro-choice lobby are like, no, they should be able to take this anytime, anywhere. Don't stop them. Blah blah blah. Just more access, more access, more access. And an abortion ban would have saved her life. And she killed twins, right? She had abortion. I think she had twins. So an abortion ban would have saved her life and the lives of her children. And instead, abortion took all three. There was some medical malpractice because there wasn't like immediately like a DNC done for her, and I don't know why. There's no law that says you can't remove, a dead body from your body. The law doesn't say that, but they want to have so many people afraid and terrified that they will just go and support abortion across the board. But the more they lie about these cases, the more that they will confuse these doctors and harm more women. So she just can't win. She just can't. And maybe she will, but I would just hate it so much. I would hate it so much. I would hate it so much, man. She's just the worst. Anyway, I'm gonna we're an hour and a half now, and I started super late, so I'm gonna at this point let you go. Port strikes. You guys still mentioning things in the comments. I already mentioned kind of the port strikes. I referenced it, but it's gonna be real bad, guys. Yeah, someone said the malpractice is what caused the woman to die. Yeah, they should have cared for her immediately. I don't know. They can definitely sue, but when there's these cases, they focus on trying to go after pro-life people rather than trying to get some kind of justice and, I don't know, finances or whatever from suing the hospital or going after the hospital from malpractice. But the propaganda from the pro-choice side absolutely continues to lead to such confusion on these matters. But if she hadn't aborted her children, she wouldn't have, been in the condition that she was in. So that's why I say, an abortion ban would have saved her life. Now, I guess there's always a chance that you miscarry and stuff, but she deliberately killed her children, and eventually it led to her own demise. And an abortion ban again would have saved both of their lives. But I gotta go. I could keep talking about all this stuff for a while. Thank you guys for being here, for listening. Especially like in the beginning, just talking about my thoughts and my feelings and stuff. And again, thank you for your condolences, your thoughts, and your prayers, your kind words. I know I couldn't go and I didn't like every comment and comment under everything, and it was just, I don't know, I just didn't have a lot of emotional bandwidth to do a lot of things. There was one person I was thinking about. There was a comment I left on someone's TikTok, and I ended up even deleting it because I'm like, you know what? If this gets into a big back and forth, I just don't have the emotional bandwidth to go at it with folks right now. So, I'm glad to be getting back into the swing of things. We will have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, tomorrow after the debate with Tim Walz and JD Vance. I anticipate that JD Vance will just wipe the floor with Tim Walz. I wouldn't say that with Trump, and I'm so glad that I didn't say that with Trump. But I think I could always be wrong. I could eat crow, I guess. and be surprised. But JD Vance is so good at interviews and Tim Walz is not. And I think Tim Walz has said that he's not a very good debater. And there's so much to attack him on as far as like the actual policies that they're proposing, the things that he did as governor, and his China connections, his propaganda kind of ideology and stuff, how he handled COVID, just so many things that JD Vance could hit him on. And I'm sure JD Vance will have good comebacks to like the cat lady lines and the I don't know, there's people, this main stuff that people say about JD Vance is kind of dumb. Like they might bring up like, oh, well, you said all these negative things about Trump, but he has a great answer for that. That he'll be able to say at the debate. I don't. The main issue is I don't know how many people are actually going to watch it, but and then there's people who've already started kind of voting and stuff. So, but there's still a lot of time to actually impact the election and stuff. So, I don't know how many people will allow this to be the thing that moves the needle, but I just expect them to demolish him. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But JD Vance. He isn't always right. I'm not going to say that, but he is very good at interviews, including going up against adversarial people. So I just can't imagine a reality where he just bombs us tonight. I just can't. But it doesn't mean that he won't. I just can't see it. But anyway, I will be at least live tweeting. So if you don't follow me on Twitter or X rather, I encourage you guys to follow me. That handle is at True Black Tea. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, all my social media links are there, but you guys can find them on blacktnews.com. But you can follow me on X, and I will be tweeting on X. I will probably be posting a couple of posts here or there on Facebook, but I do not plan to go live or anything after the debate. I could maybe post a TikTok or something in the midst of it, or maybe after it or whatever, but I'm not going to do like a big live stream or something on YouTube. So if you want to know my thoughts kind of as they happen, again, follow me on Twitter, because I'll be tweeting about it. So anyway, thank you guys. Please go to the website, check out the content on the site. I did write a couple articles, just a few while I was out, so please go read those. I might I'll be working on some op-eds that I think I might be able to get published in some different places. So you guys can, if I do, I'll let you know. Because I definitely want to talk about Kamala. It's just the worst option. And I think I got some people who can pull some strings for me. So we'll see. So I'll let you guys know, keep you updated on that. I'm still doing some events next month. It's already October, dear God. The 3rd, I'll be in Ann Arbor for a book fest. And I have like a 2-hour window of selling stuff. So that's on the 3rd. So that's the week of the election. And then on also the week of the election, on the 8th, 9th, and then going into that Sunday is Motor City Comic Con. So I have a booth there that weekend. So if you're in the Metro Detroit area, if you're going to that convention, I will be there in Artist Alley. So I recommend that you guys come and check out my stuff. I'm thinking that I might have a book signing that I might set up that will also still be in Michigan. It will probably be, I guess I don't want it to be too late in November because of Thanksgiving, maybe really early December. But I'll keep you guys updated. There's a children's book my sister's been working on. I want it to be done before Motor City, but I don't know if we'll reach that deadline, but I definitely want to have that out by the end of the year. And it's such a cute book. And it's really also about a baby dinosaur, but it's also about his mom. And you really see how important like the mom's role is like at the end of the book. And I mentioned that to my sister who's illustrating it. And I said, I'm just thinking about my book, and she just started bawling her eyes out. because she just remembered the end. So um I'll just have to wait for you guys to actually read it before you know what I'm talking about. But I guess I'll have to dedicate it to her. But anyway, thank you guys for everything, just for everything. And it's been a hard time, but got to move forward. And people have said, you know, you had a good mom. She obviously raised you to be strong in the faith and your morals and your values. You know, it comes out, and that upbringing comes out. And I agree. I agree. And my mom was very quiet, but she's very passionate about the things that she believed, and was very determined to raise good, peaceable people, but who would stand up for what was right. So even though she was very quiet, you know, she didn't raise us to be wilting flowers, and neither was she. So I just miss her, and I love her, and I appreciate you guys so much. And I don't want to get into a whole nother rant about that again, but thank you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.